So I feel like it's time that we need to play a game that kind of gets back to our roots a little bit. A game with a really deep story, and a really unique story, a unique point of view. And I'm really hoping that Tyranny gives us that. Tyranny is an RPG from Obsidian and Paradox, and kind of similar to Pillars of Eternity in terms of its systems, but a very different story in the fact that we are actually playing as a villain, or at least we're playing as the hands of the villain, if that makes sense. There's not really a whole lot that I can say about Tyranny because there's so much to learn, and as much as the preview stuff that you may have seen, like, I don't think we're even gonna scratch the surface. True to the nature of an RPG, it's probably gonna be a slow burn at the start. The way that I'm gonna start this series is we'll go through the intro here, and then we'll show you the character that I've built for Tyranny. And then we go into what's called this Conquest mode, where through a series of choices, it's gonna kind of build out this world for us. And like, really big choices have to be decided right at the beginning to kind of form the world that we're stepping into. And I know we hear this in games all the time, where it's like, oh, your choices really matter. But Tyranny is saying once again that your choices really do matter, and that things change significantly based on what we do and how we interact with the world. So, without further ado, I'm really pumped. I just want to like sink into Tyranny. For those that are new to the channel, I'm gonna recommend that you just set the vibe, and if you don't know what that is, it's lights off, headphones on, volume up, and let's just get into Tyranny here. I've got actually a notepad and pen so that I can take notes to try and remember things. Hopefully that works for me. Wish me luck, guys. Here we go.
For over 400 years, the armies of Kyros the Overlord have swept across the known world. All who stood against them fell before their might. Even the archons, women and men of immense power, were forced to kneel, chained to the Overlord's will. Now Kyros' final conquest has come to our corner of the world, and two of the Overlord's armies compete for the honor of taking our lands. The elite Disfavored, and the teeming horde of the Scarlet Chorus. The voices of Nerad, spy master and archon of secrets, guides the fierce and undisciplined masses of the Scarlet Chorus. With each battle, the Scarlet Chorus grows stronger, as the defeated are given a simple choice: serve or die. Graven Ash, Archon of War and the Overlord's most loyal general, leads the Disfavored. Though small in number, Kyros' ironclad legion has never met true defeat in open battle. Watching over the two generals is Tunon, the Adjudicator, Archon of Justice, eldest of Kyros' minions. Tunon brings Kyros' laws to newly conquered lands, aided by the Fatebinders, judges and executioners of the Overlord's laws. You were among the youngest of the court of Fatebinders when Kyros' armies came to our lands. How could we have known that the fate of thousands would rest in your hands?
Okay, so it sounds like we are going to have a very significant role in this whole thing. Quick summary of what was explained there is that basically Kyros has taken over this entire, basically the world, and there's this last little place left. And there's these two armies that both essentially report up to this Kyros. There's the Disfavored and the Scarlet Chorus that are kind of vying for like who's gonna actually capture this place. And they're both very different. The Disfavored, they're more of like elite soldiers, smaller groups, but like they've never really lost a battle, never been defeated. And then you've got the Scarlet Chorus, which is just kind of like I almost picture them as like the army of 300 in a sense. That's probably not the right way of looking at them, but they're just a large group that gives you a choice if you're defeated. It's basically you join them or you die, and that's how they amass this large army. But you could imagine that within there's probably some people who aren't super loyal to that group, so kind of interesting. And then at the top of those guys, you've got different leaders. You've got Graven Ash is a general for the Disfavored. You've got Voices of Nerat, who's the leader of the Scarlet Chorus. Both of those guys go into Tunon, who's the Adjudicator, the eldest of Kyros' minions, who's basically, he's an Archon of Justice. And Archons are like super powerful forces, like really strong mages that draw their power from unknown sources. We don't know how they got so strong, but they just are. And he has these Fatebinders, and that's where we come in. We basically enforce the laws of the land by any means necessary, and the little thing at the end where it says, how would we have known that the fate of thousands rests in your hands? That's pretty big foreshadowing. So, here we go. I'm gonna go through, I've already pre-made our character here, but feel free to skip ahead if you're not into it. I'm just gonna show you what we've done, and I'll read to you anything that's important, such as our role. So, this is our naked appearance. We look pretty good, I would say. In the Northern Empire, where you were born, men enjoy equal protections under the laws of the Overlord Kyros, and this gives you some more details on Kyros himself. I am gonna go through all of this stuff in detail. So whenever we find like additional information, I want to read it. I want to understand why we're making the decisions that we're making. So we'll come back to Kyros in a second. In the southern lands of the Tiers, this is like this world or this area, only men may own or captain ships, but real estate is restricted to women. Men may lease, but durable ownership of the land in the Tiers always passes to eldest daughters or sister. Most sons enter their father's profession by their mid-teens. Those without a profession or family lands to work can find purpose by pledging service to one of the Overlord's mighty archons. Criminals, derelicts, and others are often conscripted into the armies of the archons. If a child cannot forge his own skein, he will certainly find one in battle. So now Kyros here. Kyros is a name out of legend. For centuries, the Overlord has consolidated power, sending vast armies to swallow entire realms. The most powerful mystic the world has ever seen, Kyros can issue edicts, basically magical proclamations that level cities, spread pox under the lands, or change the course of seasons. He's pretty powerful, it sounds like. The archons, the masters of magic throughout the known world, bow to Kyros, and the Overlord readily destroys any archons unwilling to kneel. These sorceresses and madmen lead the Overlord's armies in near endless conquest. As the realms of the known world fall to the Overlord, these captured territories are divvied up amongst the archons to manage. Able to deliver suffering and woe to every corner of Terratus without leaving the capital, few have seen the Overlord in person. Though Kyros' name is the single most recognized name in the world, only the archons can say what the Overlord looks like. So a lot of like mystery and intrigue around Kyros. So here is the basic look of our guy. Here's the portrait that I chose that most closely matches what we're going to look like. It's not perfect, but it's pretty close. It's pretty close, as close as it's gonna get. Now we had some choices on how we join the army. There's 8 different options. There's Pit Fighter, Hunter, Guild Apprentice, Noble Scion, Soldier, Lawbreaker, War Mage, and Diplomat. I've gone with Lawbreaker. So, accused of a crime you most certainly did commit, you stood before Tunon the Adjudicator, Archon of Justice, and argued your case with eloquence and conviction. Impressed by your logic, reason, and confidence, he found you guilty anyways. It is rumored that Tunon selects many of his agents from his prisoners. Who better to catch the wicked than those versed in such ways? In his mercy, Tunon offered you the choice of 2 sentences: decades languishing in prison, or a lifetime serving him in the court of Fatebinders. The choice was an easy one, and instead of seeing the inside of a cell, you were trained in letters and numbers, magic and war. The laws you once broke are now yours to interpret and enforce. So we kind of come from this like troubled background. We've made a decision, and we are going to be a Fatebinder now. So let's read a little bit more about Tunon. Tunon the Adjudicator is the Archon of Justice, ruler of the conquered realms and arbiter of disputes. Oldest of the Archons sent to conquer the tiers, Tunon speaks with Kyros' authority. His true appearance remains hidden behind an iron mask, the face of judgment. I guess that's the name of the mask. Tunon is an impartial, sober creature, wholly obsessed with justice and order. Though assumed to be a powerful combatant, Tunon rarely strays from his throne room, entrusting his court of Fatebinders to act as his eyes and ears, as well as judges, juries, and executioners. Okay, so questions about Tunon, questions about Kyros. Very interesting so far. Next, we had to pick some primary expertise. So we've got sword and shield, great swords, short bows, shock spells, vigor spells, javelins, dual wielding, unarmed attacks, frost spells, and atrophy spells. Now, for my primary expertise, I've chosen javelin. It seems to be super flexible. Wielding a javelin is a good compromise between melee and ranged. Thrown weapons deal more damage than bows, but cannot attack from as far away. So you're trading a little bit of distance for more damage. They also have the benefit of being able to switch between ranged and melee attacks, depending on the enemy's distance. So if we need to close in, we can, and we still have a powerful weapon that we can use. And then we have two different abilities to choose from. Hobble, which basically slows somebody for 30 seconds. Their movement speed is reduced by 3. The one I've chosen actually Heart Shot. So we do some piercing damage, and we do bleeding for 20 seconds, which just causes raw damage over time, which I think is pretty helpful. Delay your aim to focus on hitting the target's heart, gain additional accuracy for this attack, and leave the target bleeding. So that's our basic, or our primary expertise. Our secondary expertise is, I've gone with atrophy spells. So atrophy magic drains the skills and attributes of your enemies, weakening their attacks and making them easier to kill. So I kind of think like it's a cool combo, right? You start hitting them with atrophy spells, and then you follow up with your big damage when they're weakened. And you would probably take less damage as well because you're weakening their attacks. So the ability is called just a touch of atrophy. You gather entropic energy and channel it into an enemy, sapping the target's might and vitality. So might determines their physical strength, and vitality determines their physical health and strength of personality. Personality thing I'm not so worried about, but reducing might and vitality is pretty important. Okay, so that's our secondary expertise. Next, I've designed our banner. I just picked one that I thought looked great, so there we go. I'm naming our character Tobias Batch, which is a little bit of a throwback to XCOM. I'll let you guys figure out what that name means if you don't know, but this is Tobias Batch, and he is going to be our Fatebinder. So in terms of attributes, I've changed a few of these. So I've given us extra might, which determines the physical strength of our character. Increased might leads to more powerful attacks and stronger abilities. So you can see we've gained plus 3% attack and ability strength and plus 3 endurance defense because of the increased point in might. Finesse I've left the same. This describes a character's physical and mental precision. Finesse is used to determine accuracy of attacks and spells, as well as increasing worn armor's chances to reduce a hit type. So you can get turn a critical into a hit or a hit into a graze, etc., etc. Quickness determines how often a character can use their abilities and spells in combat, reducing cooldown durations. I feel like this is really important, and I've bumped 3 points into this, so we're getting almost a minus 10% on all of our abilities and spell cooldowns, so we can use stuff more frequently. Which, in my opinion, if we can spam more spells and more attacks, then we're in a pretty good position. Vitality I've given a boost of 2, even though it's not recommended here. I just think having extra health is always nice. It determines a character's physical health and their strength of personality. It also increases the will defense, so both good to have. Wits, I've just added 1 to wits and 1 to resolve. Wits attribute describes a character's mental acuity, their ability to observe the environment and pick up on clues. Wits is used to increase spell strength, as well as increase the magic defense. And then resolve Determines a character's ability to endure physical and mental challenges. Resolves the primary attribute used to derive the endurance, will, and magic defenses. It also increases the durations of afflictions applied by the character. So I've gone with a small boost here. It's an extra 3% right now. But over time, this will change. The cool thing about Tyranny is that it's not like a class-based system and that you're like hard locked into these certain skills. The way that it works is that your skills develop as you use them. So you get better at the things that you do more frequently, and that's kind of how you start to build out your character. So it's nice to have these attributes at the start, but when we get into this next screen here, our actual skills, we start to develop these things a lot over time. So I've gone ahead and changed a few of these things. I've increased our magic staff a little bit. It's higher values lead to more accurate attacks, so that's pretty important. Thrown weapons is at 30, so I've left that where it is. It's like the highest of all of them. That obviously makes sense with the javelin. I've gone into athletics a little bit. Determine a character's ability to traverse difficult terrain, as well as their ability to execute complicated moves in combat. There are situations in the game that are going to require like skill checks, and anytime that I see something like determine the character's ability to traverse difficult terrain, I'm like, okay, I want to be able to get past that terrain, so I've bumped this up a little bit. I don't know if it's enough, but over time, hopefully we keep growing that. Dodge I've left how it is. Dodge works as you may imagine. Lore I've boosted a little bit. It determines a character's ability to decipher information and put together clues from fragments of information. It also helps your magic and things like that. But I find like any type of dialogue options or like hopefully using our words to kind of persuade somebody to do what we want, I want to have those options available, and so lore seems to be a way of doing that. So I've boosted this up to 30. We had a bunch of points available at the beginning, and this is kind of how I've divvied them up. Parry, it's just basically the ability to defend against melee attacks and spells. And subterfuge is kind of like your sneaking, essentially. So you can use this to move unseen through their environment, to detect and manipulate hidden traps and devices, and to open locked chests and doors. It also uses dialogue to determine your ability to deceive or trick the person you're speaking with. So obviously pretty important. It's already at 30, and I feel like that's kind of a high benchmark for these skills right now, so I've left subterfuge where it is. And then we've got control atrophy, which I've boosted slightly. Just determines our ability to draw and control spells that use the sigil of atrophy. Ours right now, the only spell we have is Touch of Atrophy, so that's cool. So that's our character, Tobias Batch. That's him, and I'm pretty happy with how he looks and how he's built out so far. I think it'll be a dynamic kind of playstyle that will be fun to do. Now, this part's going to be pretty important, and I'm looking forward to seeing what it really asks us to do. But selecting the Conquest option will allow you to play through Kyros' Conquest of the Tiers, choosing how your character was involved in the invasion. This gives you the most control over the starting state of the game and how other factions will react to your character. So I think we're presented with choices along the way. It's going to be mostly reading, and I'll just read it to you guys. But I'll talk about the decisions that I'm going to make, and I don't even know what they're going to ask us. But this is a cool way of starting to really like form and build out this world before we actually jump into it. So, Conquest, let's go.
All the world has fallen to Kyros, and now the Overlord's eye is on the Tiers, our home. The last corner of the world free of Kyros' reign. Two armies, the Disfavored and the Scarlet Chorus, march south from the Northern Empire, the last realm to fall to Kyros a century prior. In the early days of 428, Kyros' armies arrive at the Gates of Judgment, the mountainous border that we Tiersmen so long believed unassailable. Unable to agree on a unified plan of defense, the various leaders of the Tiers sit and wait for each other to deal with the conquerors, until it's too late.
Okay, during the Conquest, you will decide your character's actions during Kyros' invasion of the Tiers, shaping the world through which you will adventure over the course of the game. Each choice you make affects your character and how major factions of the Tiers respond to you. Your decisions matter, choose wisely. Okay. Year 1 of Kyros' Conquest, 428. Okay, the Bastard City. The Bastard City stood on the northern border between Kyros' empire and the Tiers. Built upon a natural harbor at the crossroads between realms, the city was a nexus of commerce. To the Tiers, it was the center of all wealth. To a northerner, it was little more than a backwater trading post. Its symbolic status as a gateway to the continent made it a natural first target in Kyros' military conquest. Circumstances were ideal for you to prove your worth as a soldier in Kyros' armies. Taking this city would send a message to the rest of the Tiers. Kyros' will is unsurmountable. So the Bastard City, named for its position between two realms, the Northern Empire and the Southern Tiers, the Bastard City and its surrounding lands known as the Bastard Tier, is a melting pot of cultures and a place of commerce and intrigue. The Tiersmen of the South view the Bastard City as a place of wealth and excess, but to the people of the Northern Empire, the Bastard City is little more than a sprawling slum. Tunon the Adjudicator established his court in the Bastard City. From this foothold in the Tiers, he and his court of Fatebinders imposed Kyros' law upon the conquered land. Okay. Select a token on the map to begin. So, in the first major engagement of the war, Kyros' armies crossed the mountains and established a foothold. Infiltrate the Tiers. Both armies sent their forces to prepare the way. Kyros' armies crossed the mountains and established a foothold. Oh, look at this. Okay. The armies of Kyros took the battle to the gates of judgment, trumpeting the opening call of the conquest of the Tiers. The two armies brought their distinctive sense of order and chaos to the assault. You went to battle alongside the army whose approach best suited your strengths. Here we go. So if you join battle alongside the Disfavored, this is saying you're standing shield to shield with Kyros' ironclad elite. You advanced on the mercenary army purchased by the nobles of the Bastard City. The Legion wanted to send a message to the Tiers that superior breeding and disciplined training would win the day. And then you've got the Scarlet Chorus. You rushed into the chaotic mass of the Scarlet Chorus, flanked the Bastard City's army, and drove them to flee. We can read a little bit more about the Scarlet Chorus. It's a little more than a gang of thugs and their captive slaves. Rather than organized under commissioned officers, the Chorus follow a hierarchy seemingly ruled by whoever has the bravado to command and defend their position. At the head of this chaotic pecking order, the Archon of Secrets, better known as the Voices of Nerat, treats the Scarlet Chorus as his personal army. The Scarlet Chorus often suffers tremendous losses after battle, only to swell in the aftermath when captured enemies and collateral prisoners are given the cruel opportunity to join or die. I think I'm actually going to say that we fought with the Disfavored. I kind of like the idea that it's a little bit more disciplined, and like the people that are there, I don't know if they really want to be there, but compared to the Scarlet Chorus, where it's either fight or die, I would feel much better about going with the Disfavored. Yeah, so we're gonna go there. The Bastard City learned too late that a military is earned and never bought. The mercenary army quickly found themselves outclassed by the superior tactics and formation of the Disfavored. Those few who lived in the end of the battle were rounded up, the weak executed, and the strong enslaved to haul the army's wagons on the journey south. Now, the disciplined and battle-hardened, the Disfavored are an elite legion in Kyros' army. They spearheaded the conquest of the younger realms, finding themselves always outnumbered but never outclassed. Led by the steadfast and dutiful Graven Ash, whom they follow with obsessive devotion, they're committed to imposing their interpretation of the order upon the relative lawlessness of the Tiers. The Legion only tolerates Northerners in their ranks, priding themselves on their high standards and cultural purity. That's the only thing where I'm like, I'm not totally a believer in the Disfavored with this whole like selective breeding and cultural purity, things like that. But I do admire their discipline. Okay, now we've got, you decide the fate of enemy soldiers captured in battle, or you found a way to feed Kyros' armies in enemy territory. Ooh, to judge the enemy. The soldiers of the tiers fell by the hundreds, and Kyros' armies could not agree on how to handle what few survivors they dragged back to camp. Befitting your role, the commanders turned to you to decide the fate of those who occupied prison pens. There were only enough prisoners to support the plan of a single army. So Disfavored needed slaves to haul their gear, dig latrines, and keep their pallets warm at night. You consigned the survivors of battle to their subservient role among Graven Ash's noble troops. You're gonna notice, like, there's not really like a good guy option, and that is Tyranny, so welcome. Let's read about Graven Ash. So the last of the great northern generals to stand against the Overlord in ages past, Archon Graven Ash now serves Kyros as supreme commander of the Disfavored Legion and is charged with conquering the tiers. Graven Ash shares a powerful bond with the soldiers under his command and regards each of them as family. The death of a soldier at enemy hands represents a grievous loss to the old general, who bears the burden of his love with mournful stoicism. The Scarlet Chorus option, you gave prisoners a chance to serve in Kyros' army or die. The Scarlet Chorus was in need of your extra troops to fill up the vanguard, and your former enemies would occupy those slots nicely. We also have Feeding the Host. Against the most optimistic projections, the Disfavored and Scarlet Chorus made short work of the local defenses. They did so well that the armies quickly outpaced their supply caravans. Troops were plentiful, but food was scarce. You only had time to execute one plan to secure provisions. So if we go with the Disfavored option, you authorize troops to confiscate food and supplies from traveling merchant caravans. The tiers had already spent ignorant centuries glutting themselves outside of Kyros' law. Scarlet Chorus, you send their horde out to pillage from farms and villages, spreading the infamy of Kyros' army prepared the tiers for the reality of the impending conquest. I think we're gonna go back here, and we're gonna say that we made, we turned the defeated into slaves. We consign the survivors of battle to their subservient role among Graven Ash's noble troops. Always need slaves. Wounded and demoralized by prior defeat, the soldiers of the tiers put up minimal resistance to their new status in Kyros' military. The Disfavored enjoyed the luxury of putting others to work, but didn't allow themselves to grow soft, turning away from menial duties and focusing instead on a rigorous training regimen that left them alert and eager for combat. You gave the tiers slaves their first assignment, digging a mass grave outside the gates of judgment, where a cloud of flies marked the passage of Kyros' army. That's cool. So, the armies of Kyros amassed around the bastard city, the first bastion of the tiers to fall. Both armies longed to storm the walled outpost, the Scarlet Chorus howling for plunder, and the Disfavored forming an unbreakable shield wall. Your prowess on the field of battle had carried them this far, but there was one more step before total victory. Both the armies had inspired schemes to take the bastard city. Which did you support? You joined the Disfavored vanguard in a direct assault against the city gates. No fortification would stand before the unstoppable legion, and it looks like you gained this ability, Warrior's Respite. You stand your ground in the face of defeat. During this time, you will regenerate health rapidly, but your damage is significantly reduced. Okay, so less damage, but you get plus 15% health every 3 seconds for 12 seconds. Okay, that's pretty good. And it's percentage health too, which is nice. You join the Scarlet Chorus in setting fire to the city and blocking the gates. The defenders would surrender in turn. You get Searing Palm. Gather heated energy into your hands and release it onto a foe. The target ignites in flame, burning over time. Or you led a mixed band of Disfavored and Scarlet Chorus scouts over the city walls to sabotage its defenses, and you get Concealing Shadows. So you can use this once per encounter. Create a cloud of obscuring shadows and dust. For a short duration, enemies that use physical attacks against you have a significantly increased chance to miss. During this time, your attacks will also be less effective. So you get 100% graze deflection, minus 100 accuracy, plus 200 dodge, plus 200 parry. Just makes everything harder to hit each other. I kind of like the ability to be a little bit more, have a little bit more sustain. So I think we'll go, and I guess we've been supporting the Disfavored pretty regularly here anyways. But we'll say that we made an assault on the main gates, and that'll give us this warrior's respite as well. With heroic courage and legendary determination, the Disfavored battered the gates of the Bastard City to splinters. Those who fell under the consistent hail of arrows or cascades of boiling pitch left the battlefield temporarily, only to appear hours later as Archon Graven Ash's protection healed their numerous wounds. In time, the gates gave way and Kyros' forces spilled inside the city walls with resounding cheers of victory. So you hear that, the Disfavored, they left the battlefield, got healed up, and came back. That's cool. Okay, so the Bastard City settled into a new state of normalcy with every tower displaying Kyros' banner. This is 428. Your name was whispered alongside rumors of a decorated career to come. The armies divided into two fronts and migrated south. Tunon sent word that you were to join the next frontier of Kyros' conquest, either as judge and overseer of the settlement of Lithian's Crossing, or as a war advisor with the armies advancing into the realm of Apex. What's Lithian's Crossing? Built in the shadow of an old walls junction in the realm of Haven, Lithian's Crossing is a growing trading settlement. The nearby rivers are rich in iron ore, though the locals lack the technology to smelt and forge the element. In the years following Kyros' conquest of the Tiers, the population of Lithian's Crossing swelled with refugees fleeing the destruction of their homelands. The presence of the forge bound mining the iron, along with their guards, makes this makeshift settlement a vital resource for Kyros' armies. So we can either go as a judge and overseer of Lithian's Crossing, or as a war advisor with the armies advancing into the realm of Apex. I think judge and overseer of Lithian's Crossing, plus we don't really know much about Apex, but Lithian's Crossing, it's a makeshift settlement as a vital resource for Kyros' armies, which we want. So let's say we go the judge and overseer route. Okay, 429. It's a really cool way of setting up the backstory. Years ago, Lethian the Bold founded a small merchant town at the intersection of ancient old walls. A pact between the settlers and the mercenary company meant that caravans were able to travel without fear of bandits or bane, and the town thrived in modest insignificance. Lethian's Crossing drew Kyros' attention for the iron deposits of the surrounding hills. With the region under Kyros' control, the northern smith mages could set up workshops to refine ore and arm the Disfavored with the finest weapons in the known world. The Archon of Secrets dismantled the mercenary support with a generous bribe, taking the crossing in a bloodless victory. Tunon dispatched you to travel alongside Kyros' forces and bring order to the region. Okay. Now, the Archon of Secrets, he is the Voices of Nerat, I believe, who leads the Scarlet Chorus. So basically what this is saying is this place is going to set up the Disfavored with finest weapons in the known world, but the Scarlet Chorus got involved, and they dismantled the mercenary support with a generous bribe, taking the crossing in a bloodless victory. So, interesting. Now, the iron must flow, so we can either make a decision on the iron must flow or the Cult of Siren. Let's go through both. Kyros' smith mages worked day and night to create weapons. No one faulted their dedication, yet production was low. The plans that came to light proved divisive to the Disfavored and Scarlet Chorus. On one hand, any additional manpower was needed for fighters, not forges. On the other hand, the celebrated weaponry of Kyros' armies needed to be fiercely guarded. So if we go with the Scarlet Chorus, are these reversed? This is the Scarlet Chorus sign. Let's see. The Scarlet Chorus took refugees from the recent influx and forced them to serve in Kyros' military. You repurpose those individuals to haul wagons of iron for the smith mages. Okay, this proved an inconvenience to the Scarlet Chorus, who relied on their force of numbers to be effective in the field. On the other hand, if you go with the Scarlet Chorus, you conscripted help from a local tribe of beastmen. Their strength would more than offset their disobedience. The Disfavored protested that savages have access to the secrets of iron, but their voices were few compared to the support of the Scarlet Chorus. I am intrigued, and I think getting these guys to work on hauling the wagons of iron and like building up the better weaponry for the Disfavored would be ideal. But let's check the other option. Siren, Archon of Song, used her arcane charm to lure locals into joining Kyros' army. As a patroness of the Scarlet Chorus, her efforts were critical to the conscription of new recruits. When an enthralled Disfavored soldier joined her cult, his company feared that the Archon was growing out of control and needed to be stopped. So, we could have the Disfavored demand that the Archon of Song cease her recruitment practices, and that they be allowed to violently subdue her cult of followers. The loss of soldiers was a significant setback to the Scarlet Chorus's conscription efforts. Or, in the Scarlet Chorus tradition, you sent the latest batch of cultists to the front lines of the Apex campaign. Those who survived were welcome to remain in Kyros' military, and their performance would stand as testimony to the Siren's effectiveness. I think this is fine. It's not like we necessarily have to choose sides. Like, we're like, you know, the judge, jury, executioner kind of thing. So, you sent the latest batch of cultists to the front lines of the Apex campaign. Those who survive were welcome to remain in Kyros' military. Yeah, let's send the cult to the vanguard, I think. It's more important than deciding this, in my opinion. So Siren can still sing and get people to join the Scarlet Chorus. Scarlet Chorus agreed to transfer Siren's latest recruits to the front lines of the Apex campaign. Your resolution fit their traditional model of conscription, so they considered it a fair alternative. In the weeks to come, more of them returned to active duty than even Siren herself expected, likely owing to their obsessive devotion to the Archon and her enchanting music. The Red Anvil, one of Kyros' smith mages, swore allegiance to the Scarlet Chorus, jealously hoarding the secret of iron forging. The Disfavored demanded the smith's immediate return. You can see a theme here in terms of like developing weaponry and things like that for the Disfavored. The Scarlet Chorus insisted that they were within their rights to take allegiance from any source. Tempers flared and the forges cooled as arguments stalled productivity. So, we can enslave the Renegade Mage. Since the Smith Mage would not willingly return to work, you enlisted the Disfavored to return him there in chains. Or, you can erase his mind. Since Kyros' law dictated that the secrets of iron be granted only to the Smith Mages, you ruled that the new recruit's mind be erased of this memory. Okay, that's intense. Ancient threats, let's check these out. Drawn to the arcane energy around the forges, mystical predators from the nearby Old Walls began to raid Lethian's Crossing at all hours. Both of Kyros' armies reserved their strength for the front lines of war, and yet the city required protection. You had to delegate the responsibility somewhere. So, as the largest army, you tasked the Scarlet Chorus with the burden of security. The Disfavored took the opportunity to gather their strength. Or you can choose the Disfavored. Since the Disfavored used most of the iron that came out of Lethian's Crossing, it fell to them to stand as the city's vigilant protectors. The Scarlet Chorus enjoyed a necessary reprieve. So it's basically, who do we want to give to kind of like let relax, right? And have the other group defend against this thing. I think we're gonna make the decision on ancient threats. I think just because there's so many, I think we'll task the Scarlet Chorus with securing the place. And the Disfavored can rest, gather their strength. At your command, the Scarlet Chorus flooded the streets of Lethian's Crossing. Infighting and competition among the unruly gangs made for disorganized patrols and distracted lookouts. However, when an ominous tide of Old Walls predators assaulted the city in previously unseen numbers, it took the full force of the Scarlet Chorus to repel the attack. Okay, well, good thing we had them all. Who controlled the crossing? Tragedy struck when a mercenary hired by the Voices of Nerat, so that's the guy who leads the Scarlet Chorus, injured a forge-bound artisan. Mercenary hired by this guy injured a forge-bound artisan. Forge-bound. So these are the mage smiths sworn to Kyros' service, though their operations in the tiers are overseen by Tunon in his court of Fatebinders. Each forge-bound uses magic as a tool to augment their personal craft, most commonly smelting and metalworking, but carpenters, tailors, and tanners are found in their ranks, and each mage strives to create that which is impossible with mundane hands. Most notably, the forge-bound are the sole masters of ironworking in the known world, using spells of fire resistance to wade through the forge fires. The forge-bound can work iron at temperatures no other forge can match, and with a hands-on touch that no mundane smith could hope to achieve. Because of this vital skill, the forge-bound are considered a strategic war asset, their lives regimented and controlled so that the forges may churn out iron arms and armor without debate, delay, or distraction. Okay. Basically, really powerful blacksmiths, but like not your average blacksmith, if that makes sense. Okay, so tragedy struck when a mercenary hired by the Voices of Nerat, the leader of the Scarlet Chorus, just to confirm here. Yeah, Archon of Secrets, Voices of Nerat. Have we read about him? I don't think so. This is our first time. So, equal parts genius and madman. Rumors abound that he can steal the minds of others, though few, if any, are alive to confirm as much. The subjects of interrogation are never heard from again, and the Archon is able to recall the memories of his victims with startling accuracy. He is the inconsistent leader of the Scarlet Chorus, vacillating between commanding from the vanguard and directing his armies in absentia. Despite his strange methods, no one doubts that the Voices of Nerat is an accomplished strategist, even suggesting that his madness stems from thinking hundreds, perhaps thousands of steps ahead of his enemies. Cool. So he hired a mercenary who injured this artisan, leaving him unable to practice his craft. Tunon ordered the mercenaries to leave the city in the hands of Kyros' more responsible servants. Only a token garrison could be left behind while the armies returned to the front. As the Disfavored and Scarlet Chorus showed increasing tension and hostility toward each other, Tunon decreed it best that only one force control the crossing. You granted control of Lethian's crossing to the Disfavored, or I think based on our previous decisions, it would make most sense to give it to the Disfavored. Right? It's the vital resource, this iron. Yeah. And these guys use it for their weapons. I mean, everyone does, but I don't know. The Disfavored, they just seem a little bit more regimented. So I'm going to go with them. The Disfavored placed a modest garrison in the settlement of Lethian's crossing. Though the force was larger than might be needed to police the bounds or the small settlement, protecting the forge-bound ironsmiths became the true agenda of the defense force, as these magical craftsmen kept the Disfavored invasion force suited in iron. There we go. Relieved at the departure of the Scarlet Chorus, the citizens of Lethian's crossing felt they got the least of two burdens. You receive words from Graven Ash thanking you for your decision. The forge-bound and their weaponry could not be entrusted to the Voices of Nerat. All right. Now, with the mercenaries expelled and Lethian's crossing under his new leadership, Kyros' forces congratulated themselves on bringing order to the settlement and guaranteeing a productive flow of resources. Over the course of the diversion, the army front advanced further into the tiers. Your skills were needed in the realm of Azure, Stalwart, or the Velum Citadel. I wish we'd get backgrounds on each of them, because it makes it much more enticing to go to the one that we know about, right? The Velum Citadel was a library fortress, the largest archive of the written word in the tiers. The School of Ink and Quill protected and maintained the archive of ancient lore for centuries, standing apart from the political upheavals of the younger realms as an enduring pillar of knowledge and culture. Oh, here. Kyros dispatch... No, it doesn't say. Nation of Azure. Dispatch the Archon of Stone. Kyros' conquering gaze fell upon the Velum Citadel, its treasures, its secrets, its knowledge, its secrets, and then Stalwart. With its easily defended position and rich military tradition, the realm of Stalwart was the most formidable realm in the tiers. I'm not sure. I guess the Citadel seems pretty important. Treasures, knowledge, and secrets, but then this is more like military, and it's the easiest to defend. Let's say that place is probably going to be fine then, without me. Let's go to the Citadel. Okay, so year 3 of Kyros' conquest. The Velum Citadel was an archive and library of massive scale. Its inhabitants were known as the School of Ink and Quill, a circle of mages that centuries ago carved out their own mountainous refuge on lands unsettled by the other major realms. Legends said that the Citadel housed a treasure trove of arcane knowledge. The Overlord's spies infiltrated the school and confirmed as much. The time was ripe to send a detachment to this great library fortress and force the scholars to yield to Kyros. So we can go with, I guess the way this keeps happening is like, this is kind of like a battle or war decision and then, you know, something else. The chain of command. A detachment of Kyros' army marched on the Velum Citadel, expecting an orderly surrender. As they neared the main gates, the blast of arcane energy struck the commanders dead. Suddenly, the highest-ranking officer alive, Kyros' forces, looked to you for their next steps. The call weighed on your mind, and it had an immediate influence on soldier losses. So we can order who to attack. Let's go check this one before we do. Siren, Archon of Song, used her power to enthrall enemy mages who crept beyond the Citadel walls. After Kyros' forces rounded up the arcane practitioners, the Disfavored began executing the new captives before they could share dangerous knowledge. A crime under Kyros' law with the Scarlet Chorus. Oh, cool. So, as a Disfavored, you calm the Disfavored with a compromise. The sages' mouths would be bound with iron bridles, preventing them from speaking their forbidden knowledge. Or, you punish the Disfavored, hence siding with the Scarlet Chorus, for executing mages bound to the Scarlet Chorus, because their law is that if you're defeated, you join us or you die. Right? So we could say we punish the Disfavored for executing them, because the Scarlet Chorus, I guess, should be doing that. Ordering that several Disfavored soldiers be given to the Archon of Song as her personal bodyguards. Interesting. I mean, there's other things they could have done with the mages. So I think I actually am going to go with the Scarlet Chorus here. Punish the Disfavored a bit for executing mages bound to the Scarlet Chorus, ordering that several Disfavored soldiers be given to the Archon of Song as her personal bodyguards. I like that. The wisdom of the sages and knowledge of the Velum Citadel were too important to silence. The Disfavored balked at entering the Archon's service, but your ruling left them with no recourse. Archon Siren delighted in having new toys to play with and promptly enthralled her personal guard. You spotted them in camp days later, following the new mistress with wide-eyed devotion. Good. Okay, now we've got Right of Command. The Archon of Song incited Scarlet Chorus recruits to fight their leaders. What? Bosses were killed and supplanted left and right. The Disfavored demanded an end to the practice for the good of the conquest. So, you ruled that each Archon had the right to govern their armies according to their nature. The right of command bred chaos, but it also ensured the strongest rise to lead. So that's how people advance in the Scarlet Chorus. You have to, like, kill your higher up to assume control. And we can say, like, well, each of these factions have their own way of doing things. That's their way of doing things, but that's fine. Or we can put an end to the contest. You agreed with the Disfavored arguments. The right of command had its place, but not when Kyros' forces were outnumbered and when reinforcements were weeks behind, if not longer. I think with the amount, it sounds like there are in the Scarlet Chorus, this is probably fine. And you do get the strongest rising to lead, so that's got its benefits in a group like that. Or we've got the Spy Master's Agents. A group of enemy mages surrendered to the Disfavored, claiming to be spies loyal to the voices of Nerat. No one in the army could verify the claim. The Disfavored readied to interrogate the mages, but the Scarlet Chorus protested, demanding that the prisoners be given to their custody. They couldn't risk the voices of Nerat's secrets falling into the wrong hands. Though it meant angering the Scarlet Chorus, the mages were Disfavored property. They remain in custody while you reviewed their claims. Or, you ignore the Disfavored threats, sharply reminding them that they marched at Kyros' orders and not their own whims. The mages were released into the custody of the Scarlet Chorus. So these mages surrendered to the Disfavored, saying that they were spies for the Scarlet Chorus. No one in the army could verify the claim. That's interesting. I'm not feeling as, I feel like we do more weight over on this side. And I kind of want to say that each of the archons had the right to govern their armies according to their nature. That's fine. The right of command bred chaos, sure, but it also ensured that the strongest rise to lead. Your keen understanding of their ways pleased and surprised the Scarlet Chorus detachment, who thanked you for the ruling. The following evening, 2 gang bosses were murdered in their pallets and replaced by stronger variants, who fought hard to defend their status. Though the camp grew quieter over time, the chorus fought with twice the ferocity under new leadership. Remember, we're all trying to enforce Kyros' law here, so it's not really about whose side am I on necessarily. I'm just kind of arbitrating right now. The Edict of Fire. Disgusted by your approbation of the Scarlet Chorus, the Disfavored forces withdrew from the field of battle. Your small detachment now lacked the manpower to take the Velum Citadel. Tunon sent word that Kyros' patience had run thin, and the Overlord would cast an Edict of Fire on the enemy. So an Edict. Kyros' most powerful magic is that of the Edict, commandments cast upon whole regions that can control and destroy man and nature alike. Once cast, an edict can rain fire, wither crops, demoralize cities, usher in endless nights, or do whatever it is that Kyros envisioned. No known force, magical or mundane, can stop an edict, though each edict is often worded to include some condition or contingency that will see its end. Some edicts have been short-lived, delivering days of wanton catastrophe. Just as many have lingered for centuries. So, pretty powerful. The parchment arrived in a slender case of engraved iron. Written on it, the words of a spell powerful enough to destroy the Velum Citadel. You had the choice of when to read the edict. Reading it at sunrise would offer your enemies no warning of the devastation to come. You could also wait until sunset, giving them ample time to flee or make amends. Damn. Opting to give the enemy no quarter, you proclaim the Edict of Fire at the first moments of dawn, granting the enemy no warning of the destruction to come. Though the chorus insisted your actions doom their spies, the Disfavor applauded your decision. And then on this side, claiming that they had spies within the Citadel, the Scarlet Chorus urged you to warn the mages of the Overlord's edict. Granting their request, you met with the enemy under a blue flag of peace and warned them of their doom, giving the chorus spies and the enemy a chance to run. Ooh, that's a tough one. I think in the nature of trying to take over everything, we would sacrifice the few in the giant Scarlet Chorus, the few spies, to guarantee that we're able to wipe out as many of these people as we can. So I'm actually going to go with this option, and we're not going to give any warning. We're going to do this at the first moments of dawn. You read the edict as the new sun rose behind the Citadel, casting a long shadow in its wake. You were the last person to see that hall of knowledge the moment before the devastation. The earth shook and red-orange light glowed in the foundation of the sprawling Citadel. Bubbling up from under the library, a torrent of lava heaved with explosive force, gushing from the windows and between loose bricks, melting hostile trenches in the surrounding land. The mages awoke to smoke and fire, and for most it is already too late. Only a handful of bewildered mages escaped. The smoldering collapse of the massive library fortress, Kyros will be done. Nice. So even some got out. The armies of Kyros left the devastation of the Velum Citadel in silence. From that day forward, the Tears came to know that once noble citadel as the Burning Library. Oh, cool. I bet you we're going to see references to this all over the place. The archive and ancestral home of the sages is now the site of a volcanic crater. Eruptions of lava began during the conquest of the Tears after Kyros' forces failed to claim the library in the Overlord's name. Kyros cast an edict of fire to break the siege and rid the world of the forbidding knowledge stored there. The citadel has been a smoldering ruin ever since. This was an undisputed loss of resources, knowledge, culture, and life, but a message had been sent. The Overlord will not tolerate defiance. You didn't have long to rest before Tunon called you into service once more. You were one of the last to depart from the mountains, and as you journeyed off, you spotted a few campfires in the mountains. They were mere specks dwarfed by the inferno, the last gasps of survivors, or perhaps looters from Kyros' armies, bored and daring enough to pick through the ashes. You've reached the end of Kyros' conquest. Do you want to continue or erase your progress and start over? So you can go through and like make different decisions, I guess, and kind of play things out the way you want. But I think this is awesome. We're going to leave it exactly how it is, and the decisions are going to lie as they may. And we're going to go into the world now. So I think I'll end the video here, and I'll pick up the next one. It'll be actually like, getting into the game. As I said at the very beginning, this is going to be a bit of a slow burn at the start, right? We're literally like, all of these decisions that we made in Conquest are being made to set up the entire world and our relationships with people in each of these different groups and these armies. So it's pretty important that we understand kind of the why behind things. What I really love so far is that anything that we don't really, like, any person that we get introduced to is highlighted in orange, and we can learn more about them. Like, I love that. I think that's super helpful, just to kind of flush things out a little bit. But I think on the whole, I've got a pretty good grasp on what's happening right now. A lot of those little micro decisions will probably come up in the future. I shouldn't say micro, those are pretty major decisions. But it'll most likely be referenced in a similar way, where it'll be like, oh, this decision that you made is why this person is acting like this, kind of thing. So I'm really excited to see where this goes. I love that it's like you're always choosing between two evils, kind of thing. Like this is about a conquest and taking over the world. You know, this is really cool, and I'm enjoying it. I can't wait to jump into the actual game and see what that's like. But I will put this video up like very soon after this one. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate the support. Since it's the first video of the series, if you consider just dropping a like on the video, it helps me a lot. And hopefully we'll see you in the next one, guys. And if you have any questions or any advice or anything like that, please let me know, and we'll chat about it in the comments. But we'll see you guys soon. Take care. Bye.
Now Kyros' final conquest has come to our corner of the world, and two of the Overlord's armies compete for the honor of taking our lands. The elite Disfavored, and the teeming horde of the Scarlet Chorus. The voices of